My husband texted me, "You don't need to come. My mother doesn't want you here." He sent that message 1 hour after I finished paying for my mother-in-law's new mansion. I simply replied, "Understood," but what I did next ruined their entire night. Before I tell you everything, please like this video, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. This one you won't forget. I was sitting in my office, finishing the last transfer for the mansion I had been pressured into buying when my phone buzzed. Not with a thank you. Not with a "you're on your way, right?" Not even with a simple "see you soon." Instead, it was a text from my husband that froze the blood in my veins before I even finished reading it. "You don't need to come. My mother doesn't want you here." 11 words. 11 tiny knives. I stared at the screen for a full minute, wondering if I had misread something, if this was a joke, if he had typed it wrong. But no, it was there in plain black letters. No apology, no explanation, no softening. Just a command, just exclusion, just humiliation delivered in one clean line. It was the grand opening of the mansion I paid for, the mansion I negotiated for, the mansion I put under my financial responsibility because they couldn't afford the luxury they felt entitled to. The mansion his mother had chosen, as if she were picking a dessert from a menu carelessly and without gratitude. And the mansion she absolutely did not want me standing inside tonight. A laugh, short, humorless, almost like a cough, escaped me. Of course. Of course they didn't want me there. Why bother inviting the wallets don't take pictures? Wallets don't drink champagne. Wallets don't fit in family portraits. They just pay. And I had paid. Every penny. My thumb hovered over the keyboard as my heart squeezed tightly in my chest, rage and disbelief wrestling against each other like two storms colliding. I wanted to ask why, I wanted to demand, "What have I done?" I wanted to scream through the phone to curse him out, to tell him exactly where he and his mother could shove their mansion and their party and their pathetic little social circle that revolved around nothing but pretense. But instead something colder came over me. Something still. Something almost supernatural in its clarity. My breathing slowed. My vision sharpened. My spine straightened as if remembering who I was. A CEO. A woman who built her own company from a storage room and a sewing machine. A woman who paid her family's bills when she was 21. A woman who financed her husband's lifestyle because he needed time to discover his passions. A woman who saved his mother from eviction twice when she mismanaged her money. A woman who for years had been treated as convenient rather than cherished. Used rather than loved. Expected rather than appreciated. And still I stayed. I gave. I forgave. Because I believed that love meant enduring the worst parts of someone. But maybe I had been wrong. Maybe love was never the problem. Maybe they were. I typed only 2 words in response. Understood love. I added the love the way a surgeon might add disinfectant, calm, precise, knowing exactly what would come next. As soon as the message sent my husband's read receipts appeared, he saw it instantly. Good. Let him think I accepted it. Let him relax into the celebration. Let his mother enjoy her glittering guests and their fake admiration. Let them all bask in their perfect little moment, believing they had successfully erased me from the picture. Because in that exact moment, while they were toasting under chandeliers paid with my money, I made a decision. A silent, irreversible decision. One that would ripple through every inch of that mansion before the night was over. I stood up from my chair and walked to the window. The city lights glowed under the evening sky like a spread of diamonds. Somewhere across town, the mansion was probably being lit too, every bulb burning brightly, every room staged for Eudora's fantasy life. A fantasy life built entirely on the back of the woman she refused to acknowledge. I let my hand rest lightly on the glass as a sharp, controlled anger flickered in my chest. Not rage. Rage is loud. This was quieter, denser, more dangerous. The kind of emotion that builds empires or destroys them. My phone buzzed again, another notification this time from the real estate developer. The final wire of the afternoon had gone through. $2 million. That was the moment I smiled. A slow, cold, deliberate smile. Perfect timing, I whispered. They wanted me gone from their perfect little party. Good, because I was about to show them what it really meant for me to stay away. And within the next hour, their entire world would start to collapse. 3 months earlier, before any of this poison had seeped into my bones, before the text that split something open inside me, Tiberius had come to me with that soft, helpless tone he always used when he wanted something expensive. He walked into my office like a lost child, shoulders curved forward, eyes lowered, hands wrung together, as if preparing for a performance he'd rehearsed in the mirror. "Celia," he whispered, "can we talk? He only used my name like that when he needed money." And I foolishly used to melt at the sound of it. I looked up from the invoices scattered across my desk, tired from a 14-hour workday, but still willing to make space for him. "What happened?" I asked. He sat across from me and sighed as if the universe had placed boulders on his chest. "It's my mom," he began, rubbing his temples dramatically. "She's getting older. She keeps talking about how she's wasted her whole life in small apartments and rentals, and how she wishes she could just die somewhere beautiful. Somewhere deserving." The word deserving stung even then. As if life owed her luxury. As if hard work was irrelevant. As if the universe, and apparently I should simply provide it. He continued, voice trembling with a curated sadness. "She told me her only dream, the only thing she's ever wanted, is to live her last years in a real home. A proper home. Somewhere dignified. I should have known then. Because in Eudora's world, proper never meant modest or reasonable. It meant excessive. It meant extravagant. It meant whatever she felt entitled to regardless of cost." "What kind of home is she thinking of?" I asked cautiously. Tiberius hesitated, then pulled up photos on his phone photos of massive stone mansions in Tuxedo Park, the wealthiest neighborhood in Atlanta. Long driveways, private fountains, marble foyers, 10-foot doors. I blinked. "Tiberius, these houses are millions of dollars." He nodded with a guilty pout. I know. I told her it was crazy. But she said that with my success and with yours, maybe it wasn't impossible. My success, not his. My stomach tightened, but I stayed quiet and let him speak. He leaned forward, suddenly reaching for my hand with a desperate sincerity. "Zelia, please. She just wants to feel safe. She's never had anything nice." "Tiberius," I said gently, "we're expanding into Europe. We're pouring money into manufacturing and trademarks and distribution. It's not realistic to buy a mansion right now." His face fell instantly like a curtain dropping. And then, like clockwork, the guilt campaign began. "I know you work hard. I know you're stressed. I know the company means everything to you," he murmured, voice trembling. "But she's my mother, and I feel like such a failure. I can't give her anything. I can't make her happy. I'm her only child and I'm letting her down." I felt the hook sink into my chest. That was the thing about Tiberius he never demanded outright. He made you feel heartless for refusing. He made himself the wounded bird in me, the cruel woman ignoring his broken wing. "Just this once," he whispered, squeezing my fingers. "For her, for us. I swear she will never ask for anything again, and I will make it up to you. I promise." How many times had he promised? How many times had I believed him? I swallowed hard, letting the weight of responsibility press against my ribs. I was tired. I was overworked. I wanted peace. And I wanted more than I ever admitted to feel like he appreciated me. Like I was part of their family, not an outsider buying her way in. So I nodded. Fine, I whispered. We'll do it. His relief was immediate, dramatic, theatrical. He kissed my hands, told me I was his miracle, told me his mother would finally respect me, told me this would bring the family together. Lies. All of them. But I didn't know that yet. The next weeks moved like a blur, meetings with luxury real estate agents, contracts thicker than textbooks, endless fees, inspections, appraisals. I handled everything. I negotiated everything. I paid everything. Meanwhile, Eudora and Tiberius floated through the process like ornamental guests, appearing only to take photos in elegant lobbies or select the color of the kitchen walls. They never asked if I was tired. They never asked if it strained my finances. They never asked if I was okay. They only asked one thing: when will the house be ready? Every time I visited the construction site, Eudora barely acknowledged me. No, thank you. No, how are you? No, we appreciate this. She treated me not like a daughter-in-law, but like a service provider. A walking, breathing, overdressed debit card. I tried to ignore the sting each time she dismissed me. I tried to pretend her indifference didn't cut me. But deep down, something inside me began to rust. Something began to rot. And looking back, I realized this wasn't the start of the betrayal. This was only the soil where it grew. The real betrayal came later, on the night before the party, when I overheard something that shattered any illusion that these people ever cared about me at all. But that came after I paid the final balance, after I funded their dream, after I gave them everything, before they sent the text that ended it all. The closing process dragged on for weeks, but every day felt the same: me, juggling meetings, lawyers, contractors, and payments, while Tiberius and his mother breezed around like royalty, preparing to receive a crown. I handled the negotiations with the real estate firm Tuxedo Park Realty, a company so obsessed with perfection that even their emails looked as though they were engraved. They treated me with respect, of course. They had to. I was the buyer, the one signing the checks, the one bringing the money. Tiberius and Eudora, meanwhile, treated the entire process like an extended photo shoot. They showed up only to snap selfies in unfinished rooms, pretending they were overseeing progress. Once Eudora stood in the foyer that still smelled of paint and said, "This chandelier, it should be crystal, not glass. My guests will notice." I simply nodded and updated the order, even though the upgrade cost nearly as much as my first apartment when I was 20. Another time, she clicked her tongue at the marble counters. "Are these Italian? They better be Italian. I cannot host in a kitchen that screams budget." Budget. I could have laughed. Nothing about this house was budget, except perhaps their contribution to it, which was nothing. Truly nothing. They did not pay a cent. Not for the down payment. Not for the inspections. Not for the paint samples. Not for the endless luxury fees I didn't even know existed until I opened the invoices. And yet the entitlement grew. The expectations grew. The subtle disrespect sharpened. I began to feel less like a wife and more like an investor in a company that offered no returns. "Zelia, the landscaper, needs payment," Tiberius texted one evening, attaching a bill for $27,000. Not, "Can we talk about this?" Not a "Do we have room in the budget, just pay?" Another time, "The audio team for the inauguration party needs 60% up front. Then caterers need confirmation. They only accept transfers, not checks." Then the flowers from the Netherlands were more expensive than we expected, but they're already flown in. so I barely flinched at the invoices anymore. They blurred into each other like raindrops on a window. I simply wired the money and moved on. After all, I told myself this was for family. This was for love. This was for acceptance. The closer we got to the grand opening, the more excluded I became from everything else. I wasn't invited to design meetings. I wasn't asked about guest lists. I wasn't consulted about the party theme. The only communication I consistently received was another invoice, another demand, another luxury expense, masquerading as necessity. One day when I came home from a 12-hour meeting marathon, I found Tiberius and Eudora seated at the dining table with swatches of fabric laid out like trophies. "Oh, Zilia," Eudora said without looking up, "we've chosen the uniform colors for the staff." "Staff? What staff for the inauguration party?" Tiberius added casually. "We're having servers, butlers, and a greeting team. You know, for elegance." Of course. Elegance. The kind that costs more than people's cars. "How many staff?" I asked. 12, he said. "The company sent their contract. It's already on the kitchen counter. We just need the deposit by tomorrow morning." I didn't even respond. I walked into the kitchen, read the contract, and felt my stomach drop. A 50% deposit due in less than 12 hours. Thousands more. For a party I wasn't even participating in. That was the first time I truly felt invisible in my own marriage. Like I was a walking treasury department with a pulse. But even then, I said nothing. Even then, I paid. And when Eudora received confirmation of the transfer, she didn't thank me. She didn't smile. She didn't acknowledge me at all. She turned to Tiberius and said, "We need gold accents. Silver feels cheap." Cheap. Coming from a woman who couldn't afford her own groceries without my help 2 years prior. As I stood there watching them pick napkin colors like they were choosing the fate of the world, something in me cracked. Not enough to break me. Not enough to make me leave. But enough to let the resentment creep in. Enough to let the clarity begin forming under the surface. I should have known something was wrong when they excluded me from every plan. I should have known when they treated me like a sponsor instead of a wife. But the truth, the real truth, didn't strike until the night before the party, when I transferred the final balance, when the mansion was legally paid in full, when the deal was sealed and the money left my account. That evening, after the last wire cleared, I walked into the living room and said, "It's done." I paid the remainder. The house is officially ours. Eudora looked up from her glass of wine, nodded like a queen acknowledging a servant, and said, "Good. That's what you're supposed to do." The sentence stabbed me straight through the chest. That's what you're supposed to do. No gratitude. No warmth. No acknowledgement. Just expectation. Obligation. Assignment. Then she turned back to Tiberius and continued debating whether gold or platinum trim would impress her guests more. I excused myself quietly, heart-heavy feet dragging. But before I entered the bedroom, I heard something. A whisper. A voice. A tone too low to be casual and too urgent to be innocent. And when I leaned closer just an inch, I recognized it. My husband's voice. "Yes, Mother. Everything is done," he said. "Zilia paid the full balance today." A pause. Then a hushed, sinister agreement between them. "Yes. Don't worry. Our plan is safe." My breath stopped in my throat. "Plan safe, then." Tiberius said the words that turned the world cold around me. "And you know what you have to do tomorrow." That was when I realized the betrayal didn't begin with that text message. It began long before. It began in whispers behind closed doors, in plans I wasn't supposed to hear, in conversations meant to exclude me. And as I stood there with my heart thudding painfully inside my ribs, One truth burned itself into my mind. They had never intended to keep me in their world. They only needed me to pay for it. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was crying, not because I was heartbroken, but because something inside me finally woke up. Fully. Completely. Violently. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling while the words I'd overheard replayed in my mind slower each time, like they wanted to carve themselves permanently onto my bones. Our plan is safe, and you know what you have to do tomorrow.
What plan? What task? What exactly was Eudora supposed to do after I paid for everything? The questions twisted like knives in my gut, but beneath the confusion, something else brewed, a coldness that felt almost electric. Around 2 a.m., I got up and walked quietly around the house, the tension settling into my muscles like armor. Every shadow seemed to whisper reminders of my stupidity. Every polished countertop and designer chair I had paid for seemed to judge me for tolerating so much for so long. By the time the sun began bleeding into the sky, turning everything a pale orange, I wasn't the same woman who had stood frozen behind that cracked door. I was sharpened, distilled, reduced to pure clarity. But clarity hurt. And it hurt even more when I walked into the living room at 7 a.m. and saw them, Tiberius and his mother, sitting on the couch, sipping coffee while discussing guest seating arrangements, as if nothing had happened, as if the night before was just another trivial conversation between two selfish, manipulative people who had spent their entire lives sucking others dry. Eudora glanced at me with her usual disinterest. "Morning," she said, then immediately turned back to her son. "I told you Tiberius, the mayor's wife, must sit near the piano. She'll throw a fit otherwise." My husband nodded obediently, as if he were her personal assistant instead of a grown man. As if he hadn't smiled into her voice the night before, while conspiring about something they didn't want me to know. "Did you sleep?" he asked casually when he finally acknowledged me. I stared at him, searching for even an ounce of guilt. There was none. Not a flicker. "I'm fine," I said, voice steady, unreadable. It was a lie, but not in the way he assumed. I wasn't fine because I was hurt. I was fine because I was preparing. Tiberius didn't notice the difference. He rarely noticed anything unless it benefited him. "Great," he said with fake enthusiasm as he stood and dusted off his pants. "I'm heading to the house early. There's a lot to handle before tonight. You stay here, relax, and come later. Okay, come later." The nerve, the arrogance, The presumption that I would still show up, still play the supportive wife hours after plotting behind my back. I asked quietly, "Should I come with you now?" He hesitated. He didn't want me there. That much was clear. But he had to disguise it. "No, no, it's chaotic right now, and you'll get overwhelmed." Overwhelmed. As if I hadn't handled multi-million-dollar deals in 3 languages during international trade conferences. As if I hadn't built the company that funded this entire circus. "Besides," he said while grabbing his keys, "you're the star tonight. You should rest. Look stunning. Everyone will be looking at you." Lies. Beautiful lies dressed as compliments. He kissed my cheek and left the scent of betrayal lingering in the air. Then it was just me and Eudora. She didn't even pretend to be nice. Didn't even pretend I was family. She put her cup down with a soft click and said, "Zelia, dear," said, "someone needs to cover the extra delivery charge for the imported oysters." I told them you'd handle it. She slid the invoice across the table like it was a napkin. Not a thank you. Not a please. Just expectation. I picked up the paper, looked at the absurd number, then lifted my eyes slowly to meet hers. And why, I asked calmly, did you tell them that she smirked? Actually smirked. Because that's what you're here for. My pulse didn't spike. My face didn't flush. No anger flared. Something worse happened. I went numb. Completely, utterly numb. Because in that exact moment, in that tiny smirk and that dismissal so deep it could bury a mountain, I finally saw the truth with perfect clarity. They never saw me as their equal. They never saw me as Tiberius's partner. They never saw me as anything except a source, a provider, a benefactor, a wallet with a heartbeat. And ironically, that numbness, quiet, smooth, icy, felt like the first breath I'd taken in months. I placed the invoice back on the table. "I won't be handling this," I said simply. Eudora blinked, confused, annoyed. "Excuse me," she snapped. "I said I won't be paying for this." Her face twisted, the entitlement cracking like paint on old walls. "Zelia, don't start. Today is important." "I know," I said, voice a calm blade. "Very important." She opened her mouth to argue, but I was already walking away. And I didn't look back. I spent the rest of the morning pretending to pack a small clutch for the party. But in reality, I wasn't packing at all. I was planning, calculating, thinking about everything I'd overheard, thinking about every invoice I had paid, every humiliation I had swallowed, every memory of Eudora calling my designs too modern, my achievements boring, my work ethic obsessive. Thinking about the condescending way Tiberius spoke to me whenever I questioned something. Thinking about how they had used me, drained me, relied on me, only to discard me once the house was complete. The betrayal was so deep, it felt like a quiet hum under my skin. But I stayed quiet, patient, strategic. Meanwhile, my phone lit up with messages from decorators, caterers, musicians, everyone asking for last-minute confirmations or payments that had been forwarded to me by Tiberius's instruction. I ignored them all. Around 3 p.m., I took a long shower, not to feel better, but to wash away the last traces of the woman I used to be. The woman who tolerated, who forgave, who justified. The woman who loved a man who clearly never loved her back. And by the time I stepped out wrapping my hair in a towel, I knew one thing with absolute certainty tonight. I wouldn't be going to their party. But I wouldn't be staying home either. I would be doing something much, much better. Something they didn't see coming. Something they would never, ever forget. The morning of the party passed like a ghost moving through my house. Everything felt distant, muffled, as if the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to crack. I moved slow, almost weightless, brushing my hair, moisturizing my face, aligning my skincare bottles in perfect symmetry, small rituals that helped me think while pretending I wasn't unraveling inside. But I wasn't unraveling. I was becoming something else, something cleaner, something sharper, something dangerous in a way I had never allowed myself to be. By noon, Tiberius had already sent 3 shallow messages, everything going well, remember to rest. You'll be the center of attention tonight. I stared at each one without reacting. He still thought I was going. He still believed he could control the narrative, the timing, the flow of the night. He still believed I would show up quietly, smile, politely stand in the corner as they displayed their new trophy mansion, my trophy bought with my money like a prize won through their own merit. And yet, despite everything, a small part of me wondered if I confronted him, really confronted him. Would he admit the truth? Would he break character? Would he apologize? But the memory of his whisper returned to me like venom on my tongue. Our plan is safe. You know what you have to do tomorrow. No. He wouldn't apologize. He wouldn't break. He wouldn't even hesitate. The betrayal was not a moment. It was a structure they built together. Brick by brick, month by month, dollar by dollar.
around 1 p.m. I walked into the closet and pulled out the dress I had planned to wear, a rose gold gown I designed myself fitted to my body like a second skin. I traced my fingers across the sparkling fabric. It was beautiful, hand-stitched, unique. I had imagined walking into the mansion wearing it, owning the room, reclaiming some sort of respect through elegance. But now the dress felt like a costume in a play I no longer wanted to be part of. I hung it back on the rack and chose something simpler, soft silk loungewear, comfortable, quiet. Something a woman wears not when she is defeated, but when she is done performing. At 4 p.m., I finished every small task that made me feel grounded. Cleaned my desk, prepared a cup of herbal tea, lit a lavender candle. My phone buzzed again, Tiberius calling. I didn't answer. I watched the screen flash his name, the way one watches a dying light bulb flicker before it goes out. He called again and again, then texted, just checking in. "You're coming soon, right?" I set the phone on silent and placed it face down. Not out of anger, out of power. Real power, quiet, calculated, controlled. At 6 p.m., I finally sat down on the edge of my bed. I opened my clutch and checked that everything inside was organized: lip balm, ID card, one credit card, a portable charger. It felt almost ceremonial, preparing for the moment, even though I hadn't decided exactly what I would do. I wasn't going to the party. I knew that. But I wasn't staying home either. Not tonight. Not after what I heard. Not after being told indirectly, no directly, that I was no longer needed once the money cleared. As I sat there, my phone buzzed again. This time, I picked it up. A text from Tiberius. "Heading into the party now. Are you on your way?" Another message seconds later. "People are asking about you. My mom says you're always late." My jaw tightened. His mother always had a comment ready, always condescending, always critical, always meant to chip away at me, little by little. "You work too much. You dress too fancy. You're too thin. You're too busy. You're too cold. Too much. Too little. Never enough." For a woman who had contributed nothing to her own life, she certainly had a lot of opinions about mine. I stood and walked to the mirror. The reflection staring back at me didn't look tired. She didn't look broken. She didn't look sad. She looked awake, aware, almost glowing, with a strange calmness I hadn't felt in years. I thought about the sacrifices I had made, the business trips I canceled to care for Eudora when she had a fever, the money I lent to Tiberius to save his failed calf project, the nights I worked until 2 a.m. so he wouldn't feel pressured to get a job he didn't want. I thought about every silent insult I endured. Every moment they made me feel like a charity worker funding their existence. And the more I remembered, the more the truth solidified inside me. They had built their entire lives on my labor, my effort, my resources. They had built their pride on my humility, their luxury on my sacrifice, their comfort on my exhaustion. And now they wanted to erase me from the picture. All because the mansion was complete, because they didn't need me anymore. I felt something warm settle in my chest. Not heartbreak, not fury. Something steadier, something that hummed like a well-tuned engine. Resolve, purpose, a different kind of fire, a strategic flame. I took one last look in the mirror and whispered, not to myself, but to the woman they tried to destroy. "This ends tonight." At 6:45 p.m., as the sun dipped behind the skyline and the city turned gold with evening light, I picked up my phone. My fingers moved with a calm precision that felt almost eerie. I typed a message, the simplest message possible, the one message that would turn everything on its head.
I'm ready. Heading out now. I hit send. The delivery checkmarks appeared immediately. I knew he'd see it within seconds. And that was exactly the point, because I wanted him calm. I wanted him confident. I wanted him unprepared. I wanted him believing everything was under control, because in less than an hour, nothing would be. At 6:58 p.m., just a few minutes before the party reached its full, glittering momentum, I sat on the edge of my bed, holding my phone loosely between my fingers, as if it were nothing more than a remote control. In a way, it was. With one message, I had already redirected the course of the night, manipulating it carefully, like a puppeteer tugging a string at just the right angle. And now I was ready to pull the next ones. The house was quiet. The lavender candle burned softly on the dresser, casting slow-moving shadows across the walls. My heartbeat was steady, unnervingly so. Not fast. Not loud. Just there, a rhythm that matched the cold resolve settling into my bones. I stood and walked toward the small office space connected to my bedroom, opening the drawer where I kept my work phone. A phone Tiberius never touched. A phone he never asked about. A phone he never even noticed existed, because he only paid attention to things that benefited him. And this phone, this one, benefited me. The moment it powered on the familiar glow, lit up the darkened room. My reflection in the screen looked frighteningly calm. Ready. Focused. Dangerous in the most deliberate way. I scrolled through my contacts and tapped the name I needed first. Sterling. The banker. The man in charge of all high-value transactions linked to my accounts. And the only person who could pull the emergency lever I needed. He picked up on the second ring, his voice crisp and professional. Mrs. Vale, everything all right, Sterling? I said, my tone smooth as ice. I need you to cancel every active automatic payment associated with the Tuxedo Park property. Immediately. He paused just long enough to register surprise, but not long enough to ask a question. Including the developer transfer from this afternoon, especially that one. Understood. And Sterling, I added softly, freeze anything tied to the names Tiberius Vale and Eudora Vale. Cards, sub-accounts, everything. Treat it as if it's been compromised. Another pause, sharper this time. This is serious action, Mrs. Vale. I am serious. A click of the keyboard echoed faintly through the line. It's done. 3 words. 3 bombs detonating silently in the background of a mansion filled with crystal glasses and pretentious laughter. Thank you, I said, then ended the call before he could ask questions. At 7:08 p.m., I dialed the second number. Carmichael, Tuxedo Park Realty, the man who handled luxury properties like sacred relics. He answered with his usual overly rehearsed charm. Mrs. Vale, a pleasure. Listen carefully. I interrupted the command, in my voice slicing clean through his greeting. The house you sold us is under legal dispute. His breath caught. I'm sorry I did not consent to the transfer under free will. I was misled, pressured, and financially exploited. Effective now, I am issuing a full dispute on the transaction. Mrs. Vale, these are heavy accusations, not accusations. I corrected fact. Facts I will file formally within the hour. Silence. Then frantic typing. If a dispute is filed, we are required by state law to pause occupancy. Yes, I said calmly. You're going to seal the property. Tonight, right now, Carmichael. But Mrs. Vale, there is an event I am aware. Another long silence. His voice returned in a whisper. I'll notify my team. They should be at the property in 20 minutes. Do not delay. He swallowed audibly. Understood. Click.
7:14 p.m. 2 strings pulled. 1 left. I tapped the last number. Langston, head of operations at my company, and one of the few people I trusted. Z, he answered instantly. Everything okay? I need a car retrieved tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Escalade. Company leased. Plate ending in KK. Tiberius's vehicle, formally. Another beat of silence. Langston wasn't stupid. He heard things. He saw things. He knew about the strain beneath the surface. Got it. No questions. And Langston, freeze his payroll account. Terminate his corporate access. Effective immediately 5 minutes ago. Done. When I hung up the work phone, slipped back into the drawer with a soft thud. Exactly 7:20 p.m. I closed my eyes. For the first time in months, maybe years, my mind was silent, not foggy, not overwhelmed, not screaming with hurt or confusion. Just silent, centered, focused. I walked back into the bedroom, extinguished the candle, and tied my hair up into a loose bun. I didn't need makeup for what I was about to do. I didn't need a dress. I didn't need anything except the power I'd already triggered into motion. At 7:30 p.m., my normal phone began lighting up like a Christmas tree left in the rain.
Tiberius calling. Over and over. I didn't touch it. Not yet. Not until the chaos fully bloomed. I imagined him surrounded by guests, smiling, boasting, sipping champagne under chandeliers he claimed were his idea. I imagined him showing off rooms he didn't pay for, bragging about features he had no involvement in. And then I imagined the moment his credit card was declined, the moment the caterers demanded payment, the moment the staff refused to continue serving, the moment the managers approached him with clipboards and severe expressions, the moment everything he and his mother built on lies and theft cracked open in front of their precious audience. I took a deep breath, inhaling the quiet. A queen resting while her enemies walk freely into a trap of their own making. At 7:46 p.m., I finally walked into the bathroom, turned on the warm water, and slipped into the tub. Lavender steam curled around me, soft and fragrant. My muscles relaxed as I sank deeper into the water, letting it embrace my shoulders. The world outside might have been spinning into chaos, but here everything was still. Controlled. Mine. My phone resting on the counter vibrated again, then again, then again. I let it ring. I let it scream. I let it beg. Because tonight wasn't about them. Tonight was about taking back what was mine, my dignity, my power, my peace. When the water stilled around me, I let my head fall back and whispered into the empty room, let them panic. And as if the universe was listening, the phone buzzed one more time, but this vibration was different. Longer. More desperate. A notification flashed across the screen. 25 missed calls, Tiberius 13 missed calls, mother-in-law 7 new messages, urgent good. Let the unraveling begin. The phone wouldn't stop vibrating. It rattled against the marble countertop like a trapped insect, frantic and ugly. The sound kept echoing through the bathroom, but nothing, absolutely nothing, could break the stillness inside my mind. I lifted my hand from the warm bathwater and reached for the phone, not to answer, but to glance. 27 missed calls, then 31. Then a string of texts that flashed so fast they blurred. I didn't open a single one. I only tilted the screen enough to watch the notifications stack, and with each one, the heaviness that had lived in my chest for months loosened just a little more. They were frantic. They were panicking. They were losing control. And I was finally regaining mine. Another buzz. Another. Then finally the one I had been waiting for. Not from Tiberius. Not from Eudora. From the bank. A simple alert action completed, high-value transaction frozen and flagged. Perfect. A second alert followed 2 minutes later, automatic payments cancelled, followed by a third card access revoked for authorized secondary users. It was like listening to the sound of dominoes falling one by one in a quiet room. Satisfying, precise, irreversible. I placed the phone back on the counter, the screen glowing faintly in the dim bathroom light, and lowered myself deeper into the tub until the warmth wrapped gently around my collarbones. I closed my eyes and tried to picture the moment their world shifted, the exact second Tiberius handed his card to the catering manager, fully expecting it to slide through smoothly. His practiced smile, his inflated confidence, the confidence paid for by my labor. Then the beep, sharp, flat, mechanical. Declined. Then the second attempt. Declined. Then the flush creeping up his neck, staining his collar. He'd try the other card, the one he thought made him powerful. Declined. Permanently disabled. I could almost hear his voice breaking into that trembly pitch he used whenever reality didn't bend to his will. I could imagine Eudora rushing over, clutching her pearls, whispering furiously, "Fix this, Tiberius, people are watching." Yes, people were watching. That was the best part. Because their entire social identity was built on appearances. Image. Status. Being admired, envied by people who secretly despised them. And tonight all those same people were witnessing their collapse in real time. I lifted my foot from the water and watched a rippling wave spread outward, mirroring the chaos happening across town. Another wave of notifications hit my phone. I didn't check them, but one preview bar lingered long enough for me to read 2 words from Tiberius: "Call me." That was exactly why I wouldn't. They had spent years relying on my fast responses, my immediate problem solving, my willingness to fix everything. Tonight I was teaching them the most painful truth imaginable: I am no longer available. I sat up slowly as a thought passed through me, not harsh, not agitated, just quietly factual. If they had treated me with even an ounce of respect, none of this would be happening. If they had shown gratitude, once, just once, I wouldn't be sitting here dismantling their evening piece by piece. But they didn't. And now they were learning what it feels like to lose the one person holding the entire foundation together. As I rested my arms on the rim of the bathtub, a vibration longer than usual pulsed from the phone. A call. Then another. Then another rapid fire, no space between them. I reached over and turned the phone face up. Tiberius calling. Tiberius calling. Tiberius calling. Then mother-in-law calling. Then again. Then both of them calling at the same time, as if competing to scream louder. The sight made a slow smile stretch across my lips. Not a vengeful smile, a knowing one. A smile that said, "You should have been afraid earlier." Finally, curiosity nudged me enough to tap open the message preview, not the chat, just the preview. His most recent text glowed desperate and disjointed. "Where are you? Something is wrong with the cards. They're saying everything is frozen. Did you do something? Answer me right now." My eyebrows lifted slightly. So he knew. Or worse, he suspected. Good. Let him feel every second of uncertainty. Let him choke on the consequences of taking me for granted. I slid the phone aside again and reached for the bath salts, letting lavender bloom over the water like a soft purple cloud. And then, for the first time in a long time, I let myself exhale a full, slow, releasing breath. All the tension that had coiled around my ribs for months loosened. The silence in the bathroom felt wholly like I'd stepped into a sanctuary built entirely for me. I stayed like that for several minutes before finally lifting myself from the water droplets sliding down my skin, the room filled with a warm haze. Wrapping myself in a plush robe, I walked barefoot across the cool tiles and into my dimly lit bedroom. The vibrations continued faster, more frantic.
I ignored them as easily as one ignores distant thunder. Then, just as I picked up my hair towel, a new message preview flickered across the screen. This one, from an unknown number. Mrs. Vale, this is Carmichael. We have arrived at the property. Due to the dispute filed, we are sealing the house. Security is removing all guests now. I froze, not in fear, not in shock, but in satisfaction so sharp it almost warmed me. The timing was impeccable. They would be humiliated in front of every person they had spent a lifetime trying to impress. Their empire of entitlement would crumble exactly where they worshipped it most, under chandeliers among wealthy guests in the middle of a celebration built entirely on lies. My phone buzzed again. This time, a message preview from Tiberius, long, chaotic, desperate, ZILIAWHERE, REUREIAOI, YOUTHE, YINGWEAA, VIAAUAAT, EOLAUTHE, YUESA. THEINGERENOWANDFIXTA. IKNOWYURADINGTHESE. I pressed the power button and watched the screen go dark. Silence returned instantly, and standing there in the quiet of my bedroom, wrapped in softness while chaos exploded miles away, I whispered one sentence, gentle, almost tender, sink in it. Then I walked away from the phone and let the night finish what I started. By the time I slipped into my bedroom slippers and wrapped my hair into a loose towel, the storm at the mansion had already begun, though I wasn't there to see it. I didn't need to. I could feel it through every vibration of my phone, every desperate notification, every frantic attempt from Tiberius and Eudora to drag me back into their collapsing world. I walked slowly into the kitchen, the marble floor cool beneath my feet, and prepared a cup of chamomile tea. The kettle's soft rumble was the only sound in the house, a beautiful contrast to the chaos unraveling across town. While the water heated, another cluster of messages flashed across the darkened screen. I didn't pick the phone up, but the notification previews were unavoidable, each one a window into their desperation. From Tiberius THEYESIGHTHRIGHTNOW. Then 2 seconds later, THEYEPISCKINGUPTHEFLOWERS, WHAISGOINGO, and then more hysterically, ZILIATHISANOTFUNNY. I actually laughed under my breath. Funny, no. I wasn't interested in being funny. I was interested in being final. The kettle clicked off, and I poured the hot water over the tea bag, watching the liquid bloom into warm gold. I lifted the cup, inhaled deeply, and felt a warmth spread across my chest that had nothing to do with temperature. Peace. For the first time in so long, peace. I carried the cup toward the living room and curled onto the couch, pulling a blanket over my legs. My body felt light, like I had shed years of invisible weight. The phone buzzed again, longer this time. A voicemail alert. Then another and another. The previews told me everything I needed to know. From Eudora, young lady, I don't know what you think you're doing, but you need to get down here immediately. This is EMBARARSSING. From Tiberius, answer your phone. ANSWERIT. I need you to explain to these people. Oh my God, what do you mean the house is sealed, the developer said. Why you ordered it? Call me back, RIGHTNOW. Another message preview from Carmichael chimed in. Mrs. Vale's security has initiated protocol. The property is now inaccessible. I sipped my tea. Perfect timing. I imagined it vividly, the chaos, the confusion, the cracks spiraling across the perfect image they had cultivated for years. The grand chandeliers glowing overhead, the polished marble floors, the live string quartet playing classical music on a raised platform. And then silence. Confusion. Staff halting service. Food disappearing. Guests whispering behind manicured hands. Cameras capturing every moment as the luxury catering company packed up their equipment. And then the final blow, Carmichael's team walking in with security announcing the house was under legal dispute, that it was being sealed, that everyone needed to leave. I pictured Eudora's face, the shock stretching her carefully Botoxed features into something grotesque, something unrecognizable. The way she would look around searching for someone to blame and realizing with dawning horror that the only person she could blame wasn't coming. The only person who could fix this had decided she wasn't a tool anymore. She was a weapon. Another round of messages hit the screen. From Tiberius Double, UHATDIDYUD, a YUR EMAKING USLO, OK, CRAZYINFRON. Then seconds later, THEYRETLLAN, Jew, USTOLA, a VEOUROWNHO, USA, TELLTHEMITS, AMISTAKE. And then the message that made me smile so wide it almost hurt, PLEASA. Please answer. I don't know what's happening. There it was. The first crack in his arrogance. The first tremor beneath his entitlement. Fear. Real fear. The fear of losing everything he stole. The fear of realizing everything he had wasn't his. It was mine. And I had decided to take it back. I tucked the blanket closer around my legs and leaned my head against the couch cushion. The house was quiet, warm, safe, my sanctuary. Meanwhile, across town, Tiberius and his mother were being escorted off the property they thought was theirs, stepping onto the cold pavement in their evening attire, humiliated under the glow of lights they hadn't paid for. I pictured them standing outside, shivering in the early night chill, watching security place seals on the doors. The very seals I ordered. My tea warmed my hands. Their panic warmed my soul. My phone buzzed again, a FaceTime request this time. From Tiberius. I let it ring out. Another. Then another. Persistent. Desperate. Eventually, after the fourth attempt, his rage broke through the preview. ZILIA. PICK. UP. THE. PHONE. I didn't. I took another sip of tea. And then, with a gentleness that contrasted brutally with the chaos unraveling miles away, I picked up my remote and turned on a soft jazz playlist. The music filled the room like silk. My body sank deeper into the couch. A vibration softer than the rest, an incoming text. I glanced only because the preview glowed brighter than usual. From Tiberius, I don't know what you think you're doing, but you better fix this. The developers are telling us why you froze the payment. Why you filed something. If you don't come fix it in the next 10 minutes, his message stopped abruptly. A second message appeared almost immediately. This one shorter. more frantic. They're throwing out the guests. They're dragging the buffet away. My mom is crying. Zelia Please. I set the phone down gently again, and a hush settled over the house. A powerful hush. A beautiful hush. I whispered into my teacup like it was a confession. You should have thought of that before you told me I wasn't wanted. Then I took another sip, slow, calm, victorious, while their perfect evening crumbled into dust. By the time I finished my tea, the buzzing of my phone had changed.
It was no longer the rapid-fire bursts of anger and command. No more fix this, no more answer now, no more entitlement disguised as urgency. The notifications had slowed, stretched, softened. The shift was subtle but unmistakable. Rage was turning into panic. Panic was turning into fear. Fear was turning into realization. And realization was turning into something far more satisfying than any apology they could ever speak. So I let the phone buzz in the background like distant thunder while I walked to my closet, pulled out a soft robe, and wrapped it around myself. It felt almost ceremonial, like shedding an old skin. I walked back into the living room and finally picked up the phone, not to answer, but to simply hold it long enough to watch the storm unfold through preview texts alone. The first one made me exhale a quiet, almost amused breath. Zelia, they sealed the doors. Security put stickers on the locks. They said you authorized it. Tell them you didn't. I sat down slowly, crossing my legs under the blanket. Another message came through seconds later. They're making everyone leave. My mom is yelling at the guards. People are recording her. Bypleasestopthis. Baby. The word felt foreign coming from him. A word he used when he wanted something. A word he used when he needed me to rescue him. I tilted my head slightly, letting that thought settle. Interesting how quickly people start using tenderness when power slips out of their hands. Another message buzzed through. I didn't unlock the phone. I didn't need to. The preview said, "Enough, Zelia, this is humiliating. I don't know how we're supposed to fix our reputation after this." I blinked slowly. Our reputation. How convenient that suddenly it was our when minutes ago I wasn't even welcome at the event. Another message from him, shorter, sharper, like he was unraveling. "Why did you do this? What did I do? Tell me what I did wrong." I actually closed my eyes for a moment. Not because I was emotional, but because the irony was so thick it was almost intoxicating. What did he do wrong? He texted me his wife, his benefactor, the woman who financed every luxury he flaunted, and told me I wasn't wanted. He aligned himself with a mother whose approval meant more to him than his own dignity. He chose cruelty over partnership and expected compliance in return. That was what he did wrong. And yet a darker part of me wondered if he genuinely didn't understand. Some people are raised so deep inside entitlement that losing privilege feels like abuse. Some people mistake their comfort for love and their convenience for loyalty. Another buzz. From Eudora this time. The preview made me laugh out loud, actually laugh, young lady. FIXTHIS. As if I were a servant. As if I worked for her. As if she had any power left. I set the phone down again and stood, stretching my arms slowly overhead. My muscles felt relaxed in a way they hadn't in years. I wandered into the hallway, fingertips grazing the smooth paint. My home felt different tonight. Bigger. Quieter. Lighter. Like it had been waiting for this moment too. Another buzz. I paused. The preview read, "They're forcing us out of the driveway. They said we can't stay on the property." My mom is crying. She's saying her heart hurts. I sighed, not out of sympathy, but out of exhaustion from years of emotional manipulation. Eudora had always used tears as weapons, as bargaining chips, as excuses to avoid consequences. But tonight there was no one left to perform for. No audience to guilt, no scapegoat to blame.
Tonight, the only thing she could face was the truth. Another buzz. Another message. This one longer than the others. I picked up the phone not to open it, but to read the extended preview as it scrolled slowly across the lock screen, please. Please answer. We're outside. People are staring. This isn't funny. You're punishing us for something we didn't mean. Just come fix it. You know how to fix everything. The desperation in his words was almost poetic. For years I had fixed everything. Quietly. Efficiently. Lovingly. I had stitched together every hole in his life, paid every bill, negotiated every problem, rescued him from every mistake. And it was in that moment, reading that message, that I understood the painful, liberating truth: they didn't love me. They needed me. And there is a terrifying difference between the two. The phone buzzed again rapidly now, like he had lost whatever composure he was clinging to. The preview, where are you? Another buzz. Answer me. Another. Celia, I'm begging you. Another. We can't get into the house. Another. The gods won't let us get our things. Another. Did you know they can take the house back? Did you? Another. This is your fault. And then, faster than I expected, the shift. The pivot. The inevitable ugliness. You're insane. You're ruining everything. You're acting crazy. Penthedorzilia. I smiled softly. There it was. The mask slipping. The final reveal. People like him always follow the same script: beg, plead, guilt, panic, attack. Always attack. Because attacking feels safer than admitting dependence. I leaned back into the couch and let the phone fall from my hand, landing gently onto the cushion beside me. Let him rant. Let him spiral. Let him burn. I wasn't afraid anymore. I turned my head toward the window. Outside, the city glittered cinematic, indifferent, free. Somewhere beyond those lights, the two people who believed they could dispose of me like I was an accessory were standing outside a mansion they no longer owned, wearing clothes they no longer deserved, clinging to a lifestyle built on a woman they assumed would never wake up. And here I was, awake. Finally awake. Fully awake. The phone buzzed again, but this time the preview told me everything I needed to know. Just 2 words. 2 small, terrified words. It's over. I whispered back into the quiet room. Yes, it is. And for the first time in a very long time, the ending felt like a beginning. I didn't check the phone again after that last message. I didn't need to. It's over, he wrote. And it was. For him. For his mother. For the version of me they thought would always stay small enough to fit inside their expectations. I set the phone aside and rose from the couch, stretching my limbs as if waking from a long, heavy sleep. In a way, I was. I padded down the hallway, turning off lights one by one, letting the house fall into a soft, warm darkness. The kind of darkness that feels safe, the kind that feels earned. By the time I reached my bedroom, the last echoes of their chaos felt distant, like a storm that had already passed through someone else's life. I pulled back the duvet, slipped into bed, and exhaled slowly as the mattress welcomed me. The sheets smelled of lavender and clean cotton. My body sank deeper, as though finally returning to itself after years of carrying burdens that were never mine. For a moment I lay still, staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence pressing gently against the walls. Then my phone, forgotten on the couch, buzzed again in the distance. Faint. Almost apologetic. Then again, and again. Like a dying heartbeat. I didn't get up. I didn't even turn my head. Instead, I let the sound blend into the background, meaningless now. Power shifts quietly. And tonight the shift was complete. Eventually, the buzzing stopped. The world went quiet. Fully, finally, quiet. I fell asleep faster than I expected, drifting into the deepest rest I'd had in years. And while I slept peacefully, under a soft blanket, chauffeured cars were pulling away from the mansion I had paid for carrying humiliated guests who couldn't believe the spectacle they witnessed. Caterers were loading crates of untouched Wagyu lobster tails and truffle risotto back into their vans. The string quartet was packing their instruments in silence, shaking their heads at the chaos. And in the middle of the driveway, under the glow of golden floodlights, Tiberius and Eudora stood stranded. No plan, no money, no access, no home, no allies. Nothing but the cold night air and their own reflection in the polished car windows as security ushered them past the gate. When the sun rose the next morning, I woke to light streaming through my bedroom curtains. My body felt strangely light, like someone had removed invisible weights from my ribs. I walked into the kitchen, made myself breakfast eggs, toast, fresh fruit, and sat by the window while the city stirred awake. My phone lay where I left it, face down, silent now. When I picked it up, the screen lit to reveal 47 missed calls, 32 voicemails, 26 texts, all from Tiberius, and 5 from Eudora. I opened none of them. Instead, I scrolled to the newest notification that wasn't from either of them, a message from the developer's legal team confirming the property had been fully sealed for the night. Then a second message time-stamped early morning proceeding with full contract dispute protocol as requested. Efficient, predictable, irreversible. I placed the phone down, picked up my orange juice, and took a slow sip. Outside sunlight glittered across the tops of buildings. I checked my calendar, 2 meetings today. One with Milan, one with a new investor. My life, my real life, waited for me. No drama, no manipulation, no guilt. Around 9 a.m., a softer vibration came through. One more text. From Tiberius. I almost ignored it, but something about the preview intrigued me. Just 2 sentences. We had to leave the property. They wouldn't let us take anything. Where are you? I smoothed the edge of my napkin and took my time before opening it. When I finally unlocked the phone and read the full message, I felt nothing. Not anger, not joy, not revenge. Just nothing. A clean, peaceful nothing. It was freedom. I typed nothing back. Not yet. Instead, I moved on with my morning. By noon, I was in my office surrounded by fabric sketches and the newest samples for my eco-friendly line. My assistant came in with coffee and updates. We reviewed shipments, finalized export numbers, scheduled interviews. Everything felt sharp, focused, clear. At lunch, my phone buzzed again. Another message from him, please. Just tell me what's going on. I'm sorry. I'll fix everything, I promise. Fix everything. I let the words sit on the screen. How do you fix years of disrespect, years of minimizing me, exploiting me, choosing his mother's comfort over our marriage, years of treating me like a bank instead of a partner? You don't fix that. You end it. I put the phone down again and returned to my designs. Hours passed. And finally, when the sky dimmed and the city lights came on one by one, like a string of diamonds, I drove home. Alone. Peacefully. As I parked, my phone buzzed again, another message from him. But this one made me pause. We're outside your building. My lip curled slightly. So that was his plan. Corner me. Plead in person. Drag me back into their chaos. I walked upstairs without hurry, entered my penthouse, and set my bag down. Instead of panic, a strange calm washed over me. Let them wait. Let them stand out there. Let them freeze. Let them realize the truth.
And then finally, after everything I sent, one text. You said I wasn't wanted. So why are you here the moment it delivered? I knew it hit like a blade. I didn't wait for his reply. I turned off my phone, completely placed it face down on the bedside table, dimmed the lights, and crawled into bed. Outside, somewhere below, I imagined them staring at the entrance of my building, hoping I would come down.
Hoping I would save them. Hoping for something, anything that would pull them back into the world they lost. But I didn't come down. I didn't look out the window. I didn't care. Because tonight, for the first time ever, I slept with the absolute certainty that I would never let them back into my life again. I woke the next morning to the kind of silence that feels engineered by Angel's thick, soft absolute. No buzzing phone. No pounding heart. No anxiety clawing up my ribs. Just sunlight filtering through my curtains and the faint sound of the city breathing below. I stretched under the covers, the memory of last night surfacing slowly, not painfully, just truthfully. They were outside my building, waiting, hoping, desperate. And I had chosen not to care. I rose from bed with a calm certainty, the kind that comes only when you know you've finally stepped out of a cage you didn't realize you were inside. I brewed coffee, showered, dressed in a crisp cream suit, and checked myself in the mirror, a woman restored. A woman sharpened. A woman who no longer apologizes for her own clarity. My phone lay still on the nightstand, black screen, no demands. I turned it on only because I needed it for work, not because I expected anything else. As soon as it lit up, a flood of notifications rushed in. Not from Tiberius this time. Those were grouped, muted, minimized by the operating system, like trash swept neatly into a corner, but from everywhere else. Messages from my team congratulating me for yesterday's successful negotiation. A note from the Milan partner confirming the launch. Emails requesting interviews. And then news alerts. I frowned slightly and tapped one. A blurry photo expanded on my screen. My breath caught, but not from fear, from recognition. It was Eudora. Her hair disheveled, makeup running, mouth twisted mid-shout. Behind her, uniformed security officers sealed the mansion door with bright yellow legal tape. The headline below read, SOCIALITEE UDORAV ALEES CORTEDOUTUFT UXADAOAMA SAUT. Another article, EXC LUSIV EGRA NDOPENINGPART YSHUTDOWND UAAEOA NCIAAS, and another GUEST CLAIMS CHAOT ICAEAEAEAEAE. And beneath that, comments. Hundreds of them. None kind. None gentle. None forgiving. I skimmed the posts without letting myself feel anything more than a distant clinical satisfaction. Actions have consequences, even for people who never believed they would face them, especially for people like that. I scrolled further until I reached a short video clip posted anonymously. I tapped it. The screen showed Eudora collapsing onto the mansion's front steps, clutching her purse while guests slipped away behind her, avoiding eye contact. Tiberius hovered uselessly beside her phone in hand, babbling into it while she wailed about losing everything. It was surreal, watching them fall apart in pixelated form while I stood in my kitchen buttering toast. At some point, I turned the phone face down. Enough. Their downfall wasn't my entertainment. It was simply the outcome of choices they made long before last night. I finished breakfast and left for work. The driver greeted me with a polite nod, and I returned it, grateful for the normalcy
The professionalism, the clean break from the emotional filth I had scrubbed from my life. At the office, everything felt brighter. The walls, the people, even the fabric samples piled on my desk seemed to glow. My assistant Mara entered and closed the door behind her gently. "There's something you should know," she said carefully. "About your husband, my soon-to-be ex-husband." "Go on," I replied, voice steady. "He showed up downstairs this morning. Security told him he wasn't allowed in the building without an appointment." I nodded. "He knows that." Mara hesitated. "He also caused a scene." "Of course he did." "What kind of scene?" I asked, sipping my coffee. "He yelled, said he needed to see you." Security had to escort him off the sidewalk after he threw his phone. She swallowed. At the door, a slow exhale left me, not frustration, not anger, more like the dull acknowledgement of something inevitable. "And his mother, she was with him," Mara said quietly. "She kept shouting that you ruined her life." I let out a soft, humorless breath. They had always believed their life was something I was responsible for maintaining. But the truth was simpler. Their life was never mine to fix. Their downfall wasn't mine to save. And their suffering wasn't mine to soothe. "Thank you for telling me," I said, placing my cup down. "If either of them returns, security is authorized to remove them. No exceptions." Mara nodded firmly. "Understood." She left, closing the door with a gentle click. I turned toward the window, watching cars crawl along the downtown streets, each one carrying someone with a story, a purpose, a life not entangled in mine. I felt free. The day passed in a blur of productivity and anticipation. At lunch, I received confirmation that the bank had fully frozen the remaining funds tied to the mansion transaction. By late afternoon, my lawyer sent a draft of the divorce petition. Clean, direct, unapologetic. The life I was dismantling wasn't a life, it was a performance. And I was stepping off the stage. When I finally returned home that evening, the sunset had dipped low, painting the skyline in gold and tangerine. I sank onto the couch, kicked off my heels, and closed my eyes. Peace. Then 3 soft knocks at my door. Not frantic, not aggressive. Just hesitant, curious. I rose and approached, looking through the peephole. My heart didn't skip, didn't tighten. It simply stayed steady. There, standing alone in the hall, was Tiberius. No mother, no arrogance, no confidence. Just defeat wrapped in wrinkled clothes and swollen eyes. His lips parted, as if he sensed me on the other side of the door. "Zelia, please." I kept my voice barely above a whisper, but firm enough to cut through the door. "Go home, Tiberius." Silence. Then he placed his forehead against the wood. "I don't have a home." I closed my eyes, not out of pity, but out of finality. That, I whispered, is not my problem anymore. I turned away. His quiet sob broke somewhere behind me. But I didn't turn back. I walked to my bedroom and shut the door gently behind me. Because tomorrow everything would change. Forever. The next morning, for the first time in so many years that I had lost count, I woke without feeling like someone was pulling invisible strings from the inside of my chest. No knots. No dread. No half-formed fears waiting to ambush me the moment consciousness returned. Just air, clean, soft, expanding in my lungs like freedom had finally learned my name. I dressed slowly, choosing a simple black dress and a gold necklace I hadn't worn in a long time. I made breakfast, watered my plants, let sunlight warm my arms as it spilled across the table. Everything felt normal, and yet every breath carried the quiet certainty that today was a turning point. My lawyer had scheduled the final signatures. My heart had already signed them long before. By noon, I was sitting in a polished office with floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city bustle beneath us as if the world had always been this steady.
When the papers slid across the glass table toward me, I didn't hesitate. I didn't stall. I didn't tremble. I picked up the pen, uncapped it with a soft click, and signed my name with a flourish I hadn't felt since I first built my company. Marriage dissolved. Obligations severed. Guilt gone. The past, with all its bruised hope and hollow promises, shrank neatly into a stack of stamped documents. When I walked out of the building, the sunlight felt different, brighter somehow, as if it had been waiting for this exact moment to touch me. My phone buzzed once. A single notification from my lawyer. It's officially done. Those 4 words were lighter than air. I tucked the phone into my purse and began walking toward the parking garage. But then I slowed. Standing near the curb, leaning against a battered sedan with peeling paint, was Tiberius. For a moment, we simply stared at each other. Not as husband and wife. Not as partners. Not even as adversaries. Just 2 people who finally saw the truth. He looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, though. He had lost weight and his clothes hung on him like they'd given up too, but spiritually. Deflated. Diminished. As if every lie he had told himself had finally evaporated. He pushed off the car and took a step toward me. His voice was low, hoarse. "It's really over." I nodded. "Yes." His throat bobbed as he swallowed. "I didn't think you'd actually go through with it." I tilted my head slightly. That I said softly is exactly why I needed to. He opened his mouth again, but no words came out. Just silence. A silence filled with all the apologies he didn't know how to say and all the guilt he couldn't undo. "My mother," he muttered weakly. "She's not doing well." "She wasn't doing well long before last night," I replied, voice steady. "Her life just finally caught up to her." He exhaled shakily, rubbing his face with both hands. "I messed everything up. I didn't deny it. I didn't soothe him. I didn't fill the silence with excuses. Because responsibility was the only thing he had left to claim. I never wanted to lose you," he said quietly. "But I think I lost myself a long time ago." For the first time, his voice didn't sound entitled, or defensive, or manipulative. It sounded human. Broken. The version of him I had spent years waiting for, the one who could look at his mistakes without blaming the world, was standing right in front of me. And I felt nothing. No joy. No triumph. No ache. Just a calm acceptance that some people only grow when everything around them burns. "Take care of yourself, Tiberius," I said finally. "Take care of your mother. And take responsibility for your life." His eyes glistened. "Will you ever forgive me?" I breathed in deeply, then answered with the truth I already have. His shoulders slumped, not with relief, but with the overwhelming realization that forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation. It meant release. I stepped past him, heading toward my car. Each footstep felt like shedding another layer of the past, thin, brittle threads snapping under their own insignificance. Before I reached the door, he spoke again, voice cracking. "Zelia, who am I without you?" I paused, resting my hand on the handle, then glanced back at him. "Someone you'll finally have to meet." And with that, I opened the door, slid into the seat, and closed it gently behind me. As I drove away, the rear-view mirror caught a final glimpse of him standing alone on the sidewalk, staring at the ground like he was realizing too late that the world doesn't stop crumbling just because you close your eyes. That evening, I attended the charity gala I had funded long before the mansion drama began. Not the kind of gala Eudora would have ever stepped foot in. This one didn't feature gold-plated canapés or champagne fountains. It was held at a youth shelter in the heart of the city. Painted murals covered the walls. Strings of warm lights hung from the ceiling. Laughter, real, unfiltered, bright, filled the space. I spent the night talking to the girls who had found safety there, listening to their dreams, their fears, their hopes. One of them squeezed my hand and said with eyes shining, "You look happy." And without hesitation, I answered, "I am." When the event ended, I walked outside into the cool night air. The city hummed softly around me. I tilted my head toward the sky, letting the breeze brush against my cheeks. My heart felt open, light, whole. No mansion, no mother-in-law, no man who dimmed my shine. Just me, a woman who had chosen herself, a woman who had reclaimed her life, a woman who had walked through fire and come out carrying her own torch. As I stood there, illuminated by the glow of streetlights, I whispered softly to myself, to the universe, to the girl I used to be, "This is freedom." And for the first time in my entire life, I truly believed it.